Good day. Nice to see you folks back. Hope we have a good program for you today. Excuse me. We just welcome you to the Adult Focus on Longmeadow Issues. That's the name of the program. Before we get to our speaker, I'd like to introduce our usual panelists. Right next to me is Ellie Tyson, and across me is Jim Jones, and my name is Ray Marr. Today's guest, some of you probably already know her, she seems to be well known in town, is the director of the Longmeadow Parks and Recreation Program. Her name is Bari Thomas, and we welcome you, Bari.
Thank you.
Before we get into the actual questioning heavy duty, we'd like to have you just respond to showing us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you came from, and why you're here, and
Sure.
anything else you can throw in.
Sure. Well, I'm a graduate of Springfield College. I actually got my undergraduate degree in elementary education. So initially I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I went back to Springfield and got my master's degree in recreation management. I worked at the Springfield YMCA for some time and have been with this department for almost 15 years. And I serve on the board of Massachusetts Recreation and the Park Association Board of Directors, which is the state organization for all recreation professionals, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Springfield College, where I teach undergraduates recreation management courses.
I understand in your spare time you're also an advisor on this committee for Longmeadow Cable News. Is
I am. I
yes?
serve on the board for LCTV.
So watch it, folks. We're on our toes. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the goals and objectives you have, whether mandated to you or that you have.
Sure. Well, as with most town departments, the Department of Parks and Recreation serves under the town manager, but we have a board of park commissioners, a board of 5, that serve as an advisory committee to the department. And we serve the community in a lot of different capacities. We run recreation programs for ages 1 month up through as old as you can imagine. We have different facilities that we are in charge of the operations for. Our main office is actually at the community house, and we also have our office at Greenwood Center, which is where we house the daycare and the after-school program. We have the 2 pools. We have Greenwood Pool at Greenwood Park, where we also have 2 tennis courts, and we have Bliss Pool, where we have the Boundless Playground, and we have Reynolds Pool. We also operate the tennis courts at the high school.
So you probably do a lot of traveling in your job.
We do. We go back and forth and check our different sites, and yeah.
Okay. Well, as you probably can tell, my voice is fading very quickly, so I'm not going to talk too much from here on. Let's turn it over to my speaker on the left here, Terry.
Well, thank you, Bari. We do appreciate your being here. I don't have any of the technical questions. I'm saving those for Jim because he's pretty good at that. But I just wondered, because we are asking questions regarding the adults here in town, I just wondered if you've had a chance to actually speak with some of the adults from the adult center here in town regarding different types of activities that they might be interested in that you are not so far have not come up with. I don't know if there has been anything like that. I remember quite a few years ago we received a letter asking us to send in information about what we might be interested in. I don't know how that ever came about. I think this was before your time.
Sure.
But I just wondered if you'd had a chance to speak with a group.
Mm-hmm. I'll actually answer the last question first and the first question last. The survey that you received, and probably many of your viewers at home received, was part of the initiative that we took in our department to kind of formulate a master plan, a strategic plan. We hadn't had one in our department, and we had a good idea of the direction that we wanted to go in, and based on feedback that we had received from different residents in town, we wanted to make it a little more formal. So we had visioning sessions at the community house, which we had a good number of our older adults attend, and we sent out 2 surveys. Well, one survey that was a random sampling of every resident, and then we sent to the middle school and our older adults through the senior center. That's the first part of that. The second part is because Greenwood Center houses the daycare and the after-school program and the adult center, there's a very good opportunity for collaboration, which we take advantage of quite a bit. We have our assistant director, Mary Hannigan, working with Norrie Smith, and they collaborate on different programs. Some of it is just cross-marketing and promoting each other's activities. We put quite a bit into our seasonal brochure as to what the senior center activities are, and then in the senior voice, we're allowed to do that as well. So we do collaborate. We share space all the time. There's a pretty nice dance program, a senior tap program that is at Greenwood at the gym on Fridays, and they actually performed in our dance recital recently, which was nice. So we have a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and we're starting to take advantage of it actually a little bit more than we have in the past. And I've met with the Council on Aging Board of Directors to talk about possible collaborations, and I've met with your Senior Center Director, Karen Michelman, quite a bit to talk about opportunities. And I think pretty soon the public will see some kind of proposal to maybe consolidate our resources and perhaps work even closer together, which would be nice for both departments, really.
Thank you.
I think I was not understanding the name. Your department is Parks and Recreation, so I was under the misapprehension that you handle the parks, and you don't. You don't have anything to do with the physical structure of the parks in the town. Is that correct?
It's correct. We don't. Initially, when the department was formed, probably 60 years ago, it was the Parks and Recreation Department. At that time, there wasn't a DPW. There was a water department and a sewer department. And with the charter, as everyone knows, came many changes. And one of them was to consolidate that part of our division of our department, the Parks Department, and that actually went to the DPW, which formed the Grounds Department. And the Grounds Department now consists of all the former park staff, and they maintain all of the parks. They do the athletic fields, and I believe that the schools also had a maintenance department that's not part of the Grounds Department, but it's kind of consolidated into the DPW as well.
So the fact that one of my questions was, what are you going to do with the tennis courts at Bliss Park? You're not going to have anything to do with the tennis courts at Bliss Park, but are you going to have an input as to what happens to them?
I believe so. Physically, no. That's not something that my department is in charge of, the physical part of it. But as far as the operational components of the parks, we schedule many of the activities in the parks. My department works with all the sport associations, and we schedule the fields. We work very closely with DPW to make sure the fields are lined and groomed. And as far as the Bliss courts, I do think that public input as well as my input, the park board's input, will be a factor in that. We have attempted a few times to try to get funding to make some changes to that property, and we applied for a grant with the State of Tourism grant that we didn't get, and I actually applied for capital funding to make it a more beautiful place, and that wasn't in the plans for this year, but perhaps it will be for next year. So I believe with those courts, for now, they're being maintained. They're just certainly not as tennis courts, but just
right.
So they're not an eyesore, because certainly they have been.
Now, I noticed when we were at the adult center the other day, there's a little park being built behind.
Yes,
are you involved in that also?
We are, actually. That's another part of the collaboration that Ellie had asked about. We have a couple projects that we're working on at Greenwood that directly involve the adult center. One of them is the patio that you just referred to, and that was secured through CPA funding 2 years ago. That's being built now, and it's a nice patio with landscaping and some game tables and benches. It's being built as we speak, so I would say within the next week or two it'll be completed. And the other project, we're working with an Eagle Scout and some independent vendors who are donating their time, is a bocce court, which was definitely of public interest. I've received a lot of feedback on that we don't have anything really outside for our older adults to do other than walk around the grounds, so that'll give them a nice opportunity.
Where is that going to be located?
It's to be determined. Probably, I think what we're looking at is nowhere near the ball fields, but we have a nice path where the patio is that leads onto Nevins, and it's still on our property and probably would be in that area
Oh,
somewhere.
I've walked that path.
So, which is nice.
Cuts down in the back and then hits Nevins.
Right.
Yeah.
We're thinking probably closer to our property, probably right off of the parking lot, somewhere in there. So it's easy access, but it's far enough away from the active recreation, so there's not an issue.
Now, I've noticed when I'm around town, I always see your park and recreation vans running around. What are they doing?
We have two vehicles in our department. One is a white Blazer, and that's usually used for admin and administration. That's usually me running around in that, and you'll see me more in the summer checking our pools. As I said, we have the 2 pools and all the tennis courts, and in the summer we run all our camp programs, which is everywhere from Wolf Swamp Fields by Twin Hills Country Club all the way to Bliss Park and everywhere in our little town. So that's mine, and the van is actually a passenger van that we use for our after school program. We have about 180 children that we have in our school age program, and on any given day we're transporting from the schools to Greenwood. So we use that van primarily for that, sometimes field trips, sometimes camps.
So you have 180 children in the daycare?
We in
school program?
in the school age program. In
Wow.
the daycare we have about 63.
That's
We're very
good.
fortunate to have that after-school program at the center. I mean, it's kind of a
I believe we are.
interaction thing,
I think
yeah.
in most communities you'll find that their after-school programs are housed in the schools,
At the
which is where the
schools,
children
yeah.
have been all day. So it's nice. It's nice to have Greenwood with the big gym and the different activity rooms where they do everything from cooking to free play to their homework. We have a component that's just for 5th and 6th graders. They're a little older. They have different interests. So it's very nice.
To be honest, I didn't know you ran that program. It's very nice.
Excuse me, just a
go ahead.
second to follow up on something. Coming into town, I think yesterday, it's hard to get in town, by the way. Coming into town, at the top of the hill, there was a sign for football signups.
Yes.
Is that part of your program? Is that
It's a sponsored association, so indirectly, yes. We have all of our independent sports in town, our football, our softball, soccer, lacrosse, and baseball. They are all sponsored, so they're run by an independent group of volunteers. Oftentimes they seek 501c3 status, so they maintain their own financials. They run their programs completely independent, but they adhere to sports standards that the park board had put forward, and we sponsor them for that.
It just got my attention because of the fact it was football, and I'm thinking, wait, we haven't got through baseball yet. What's going on?
It's time for football
Oh, I
and
know, it's
soccer and
amazing,
field
yeah.
hockey.
Yeah.
Sure, if you
all
go
that.
past Wolf Swamp Field, I mean, there's hundreds of children and adults running around,
Sure.
softball and lacrosse and soccer, et cetera.
We do. We run a lot of youth programs. We also run adult programs, which is probably would be nice to talk about here since the focus of this is adults. We have a men's softball league that we run. It's not an association like the other sport associations, but it is run through Parks and Recreation. I believe we have 9 teams, and they play from now all the way through September. We have a master swim program, which is at the high school during the swim season, and it's a well-run program that adults can participate in. We have tennis for adults, and we have a lot of special interest programs as well. We have our French program. We always have trips, so we have a lot to offer everyone, not just the youth of the town.
Is there volleyball involved somewhere along for
We
adults?
have 3 different volleyballs. We have a co-ed volleyball, if you'd like to play co-ed. We have a men's league, and we have a senior men's league. So we have 3 opportunities for volleyball for
Now, can
adults.
I ask you the question that has been on other people's minds, or the rumors going around town that the senior center is going to be closed, and you had looked into that. Have you gotten an answer of some sort?
I have. I have certainly heard that as well, and I think that the comment initiated from a select board meeting, I don't believe that to be the intent at all. I believe that the view from all of our elected officials, and certainly from our town departments and our staff, is that we have a lot to offer at Greenwood. It has nothing to do with the services, certainly, that we offer. I think that they're essential. I think that our elected officials think that they're essential. I think perhaps what was meant with that is when we look at our facilities, which we're doing frequently. If you remember last year, we had a whole survey done from an independent architectural company, JCJ, and they came in and let us know what was wrong with all of our buildings. Greenwood was a top scorer with the issues that we have. Certainly, we wouldn't have invested the money to put in a new roof, and we have the new patio that we're putting in, and that was what was said to me, just to assure the public that we wouldn't be making these long-range improvements if we had intentions of abandoning the building. Certainly we don't. I do think that if the opportunity ever came up to have the services that we have at Greenwood move into a better location, I think that we would all be open to that, and I think that would include the public as well, that any opportunity, we're looking at all opportunities, especially with the times being what they are. I mean, even for funding, we're looking at funding sources that we really haven't had to before. So I think that includes our public buildings as well.
You know, speaking of funding, I'm sorry, Jim, my thought came to mind. In the paper today, there's a picture of the ex-mayor of Westfield, Richard Sullivan. And he's in the state government now as a
he works for
conservation,
DCR.
and he was talking to a bunch of people from Berkshire somewhere. I can't remember the name of the town, but a whole group of people, and just looking for feedback. Is he apt to come to somebody like yourself for that at some time?
To look for funding?
No, to look for ideas maybe.
Perhaps ideas. Funding he wouldn't find,
yeah.
Unfortunately. But perhaps I think we have, as I mentioned in the introduction, that I serve on the board for MRPA, which is our state board for recreation professionals. The president of MRPA works for DCR, which is the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Oh, okay.
And there's a nice collaboration there. I think, again, given the economic times and the networking opportunities that we all have as professionals, we are all talking, and it's quite possible that would be an opportunity for some kind of relationship there in the future. We do some things with DCR. We have, with our library, it's called Check Out Parks program, and what it is you can actually go to our store's library and borrow a pass, because as you know, most things are for fee now, and nothing's free. So entering state parks, there's a nominal fee, but you can actually check out the pass and go to any state park in Massachusetts, and it won't cost you anything, which is a nice program. There's also, the DCR has different programs like scavenger hunts and things like that. So if you do decide to travel state parks, which I believe many people will be entertaining that thought.
More so now. I think.
So, that's something too. But.
Now, how many employees are employed by Parks and Recreation, and how are they funded?
We have, I'd have to count to be exact, but we have, in our daycare, we have many part-time. We probably have hundreds of seasonal and part-time staff, given that. But as far as full-time, in our daycare, we have about 15 full-time staff. Administrative-wise, we have about 6. And all but 3 of those are funded through our revolving account, which is independent from the tax base, which most people might not know.
Right.
There's only 3 positions supported by tax dollars in my department. And everything else, as well as all the expenses for the programs that we run, are supported through the revolving account, which means if you buy a pool pass, the money goes right into the department and you are directly funding. And it also means that tax dollars are not necessarily paying for the pool chemicals. So even if you're not a pool user, it's the users that are funding the programs.
Now, you have a board of directors, and you told us the other day that because of the charter change, they are not elected anymore, they're appointed.
Correct.
Is that correct?
We have.
And what is their function?
We have a board of park commissioners that pre-charter were elected officials, so when we had town elections, you voted for them, and when the charter was implemented, they were transitioned into an advisory committee, or an advisory role. And it doesn't mean, it hasn't changed drastically. They still serve in the capacity that they are reviewing financials of the department, so on a monthly basis they review all our financials. They're kept apprised of everything that's going on in the department, whether it's proposed policy, whether it's for the splash pad that's going in at Greenwood, the new rules for that.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Different things like that. They are made aware of staffing issues. They're very helpful in fundraising. We just had our pancake breakfast. It was our 3rd annual pancake breakfast, and the park board does a wonderful job soliciting funding to support our Trelease Fund, which is our scholarship fund, which we have. So if any individual has a hardship in their family, they can apply for subsidized fee, which thanks to the park board, that's possible.
You want to answer, what is a splash
No,
pad?
well, I was going to ask because as I've been bringing my grandchildren up to the park, I noticed that they had filled in the kiddie pool.
Yes.
And that they were putting this new little gizmo up,
Yes.
which looked kind of interesting.
Sure.
And what is that? What is a splash pad? I have no
I think
idea.
some people call it a spray pad. Some
Oh,
people call it a
okay.
splash pad. I think it depends on where you're from. One of the things, going back to the facilities, that we are finding is they're aging, and that's
I
doesn't.
knew because for the last, 4 years or
years.
so, they haven't been able to use the kiddie pool. It's just been closed. This is a great idea, though, to have the...
It wasn't, and the Capital Planning Committee was very generous last year in approving our request for funding, and we were able to do that. We found that with the pools, we're having to, well, with anything really, the facilities, we're making modifications and improvements, and two of the things that we did last year for Capital involved the pools directly. One is at Reynolds Pool, which is at Bliss Park, and we put in a brand new filter system. In the past, we had a cartridge system, so for a 278,000 gallon pool, you can imagine the cartridges and the expense that we went through. Cartridges are nice for spas, but not for a big pool, so we were able to convert the filter system there and put in the spray park splash pad at Greenwood, which is very nice. It's as far as sanitation, it's nice because there's no standing water,
Right.
and the kids love it. It's very nice for small children, and it's a nice amenity to the pool.
Now, do you find that the demographics in Long Meadow changing? In other words, you don't have the children coming up as, there's more adult.
I think so. I think our youth programs are pretty well established, and I think most of the requests that we get are either for adult programs or for middle school and teen programs. I think that at least what we're seeing in Parks and Recreation is our student population is not shrinking, but it's certainly not growing as it was maybe 8 years ago. And we get a lot of requests for different kinds of programs for middle school, for high school, and certainly for adults. So we're looking at that, and we always take feedback. We always ask for feedback on our website. We have a survey that's always on our website, which is lprd.net, and you can take that survey, and that lets us know what people are thinking. People in this community are wonderful about sharing their views and opinions. We get emails. People can email us directly. They can call us. And people come up to see us when we're in the park, so we get a lot of feedback in person, which is nice.
Could you repeat that slowly, because maybe somebody wants to take that down?
The website.
Absolutely.
The website.
We have a
You got it.
we have a very nice website. It's www.lprd for Long Meadow Parks and Recreation Department, lprd.net. And there's a lot of information on that website. All of our staffing, our dance program. We have a very big dance program that we're starting to expand into adults. And we started last year, as I said, with the dance recital with our senior tappers coming on, hoping that would bring interest to that component of the program, because it's a wonderful opportunity. We've done ballroom dancing, things like that. So
Now, would that kind of a program be in the evening or late afternoon, or when?
it depends. Our
Okay.
tap program happens to be in the afternoon, but ballroom happens to be in the evening. We're very good about taking people's feedback and building programs based on need, so we'd be open to either, most likely in the evening. Not too dark, probably early evening.
And you mentioned before you do have bus trips to various places. I know I signed up one time for a whale watching, but unfortunately not enough people maybe knew about it and it was canceled. But you
Right.
have trips to New York, et cetera, et cetera?
We do. Some of them are more successful than others. Our New York trips are very successful. We go to Radio City every winter to see the Christmas show. We've done trips to, most of our New York trips do quite well. We've done American Girl, which is for little girls. American Girl is a big enterprise of dolls, and we've done that in the past. We've tried lots of different trips to different excursions like whale watching and Plymouth and Toronto to see the Red Sox play. We've done a lot of different things like that, and some have worked, some have not. What we're seeing now is some of the trips, especially the trips that cost a lot of money, they're not going. We just ran a trip last week to New York City to see Mary Poppins on Broadway, and we had a very difficult time with that because the tickets are pricey. Certainly not on our end, but that's what they cost, and with the bus and things like that. So We're changing. We're constantly changing.
Right. Now, if they go to your website, they can find these trips on there?
They can find anything. If you go on our website, if you look under programs, they're subcategorized into different areas. All of our trips are in the cultural section, and we have an aquatic section, tennis, camps, daycare, all of those different content areas that people can go online and look and see if we have something that interests them. And if not, then they should call us and let us know what we could be doing.
I just got a tip over here that we are running close to the end.
Okay.
I wanted to ask if you could maybe briefly say a few moments about any wish lists you may have. If you didn't have too many restrictions on you financially and so on, is there some things you'd really like to see happen?
Absolutely. I think every department head has that, and probably every recreation professional would like their own center that is cutting edge, meets all their needs. And when we first started doing our visioning sessions, we looked at Greenwood and we looked at what we have at Greenwood, which is our adult center and our daycare. So we have our oldest population and our youngest population. And I think having a center where it meets everyone's needs, where it's built the right way and it's accommodating, I think that would be something that would be quite wonderful for both entities.
Okay.
Now, one last question, do people know that they can rent out the community house? Do you take care of that?
We do. That's something that Parks and Recreation runs. We put it in our brochure. I'm not sure that all people know that, but certainly we rent the community house for a lot of different functions, for weddings, for birthday parties, for you name it. We rent it.
I think that's a great idea.
And we do. So people would just call our office if they were interested.
Okay.
Okay. We've only got a couple minutes left. Number one, I want to reflect on the fact when I didn't know you before we had a little session here last week. I was quite impressed with your savvy about the program and all that. And I said, this girl's too young to be that knowledgeable at this point. But you've been with this department for quite a while.
15 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of worked your way up the ladder.
I have.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it was very impressive, and I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for coming. I understand you're on your way to New York and all over the world.
Worcester and New York.
God bless you. I see the traffic coming. I did want to put in a little plug for our next program because I think it's going to be unusual to say the least. We're thinking of the title of the program is going to be something to the effect of "To Stay or to Leave Long Meadow." We won't go any further than that except to say that we hope that it'll be of interest to you. And again, I want to thank you for all that you gave us today. It's we're only going to have for a change. We're only having a program on the topic. So those of you out there, hopefully you'll get to see it. I have forgotten the times. I think it's Tuesdays and then Sundays, and I don't have the time, so I won't try to give you the misinformation. But you can find it in the menu on the cable TV, I'm sure. Jim, thank you for your lineup of questions, and Ellie, appreciate that, and again, thank you very much. So I think we're about there, and okay, good. Thank you very much. Hope to see you next program, and have a good day.